Hey guys, welcome back to HotS Thoughts. Today I am going to be talking about when to engage. And now that I've started my Monday, Wednesday, Friday regiment, we should be seeing more of me, luckily. Before I start anything though, first I want to make an announcement. And that is that Team Liquid is looking for writers for our forum. So if we just go here, this is on our forum. It's sticky at the top. TL Recruiting Heroes of the Storm staff. We're just looking for some new writers. As the new year kicks off, we're realizing that we're running a little bit low on people compared to the things that we want to do. So we're trying to get more people involved, more people doing stuff. If you want to write for us, just send me or Cadaver BB a message on Team Liquid and just let us know that you want to write for us. Alternatively, you can go ahead and, if you are not part of the Team Liquid community, you should be, first of all. But if you're not part of the Team Liquid community, you can also email us at SE2John. No, sorry. You can email us at tlheroeswriters@gmail.com. Let me go ahead and... those are my notes. Let's see, is there an easy way to do this? Here we go. This is the easy way. Actually, no, I'm just going to write it in the Google search bar up here. TL Heroes Writers at gmail.com. So you can email us there, or you can comment, or you can PM us on Team Liquid. If you are not an experienced writer, really don't sweat it. Don't worry about it. Don't think, oh no, I'm not a good enough writer to do this. If you want to write, just go ahead and apply. That's all it takes. When I first started at Team Liquid, I was not a very good writer. I mean, I was an alright writer, but I didn't really know how to do the kind of stuff that we're doing. But because I got on board with a bunch of people who did know what they were doing, I was able to learn really quickly and learn quite a bit very quickly. So you're surrounded by a bunch of people who know what they're doing, and you can learn a lot. So I suggest, if you have any kind of desire to work for us, it is unpaid, but if you have any kind of desire to just write and be known in the community, go ahead and let us know. Alright, so on to our subject for the day. Today's subject is going to be knowing when to engage. Now, it's really important to know when to engage, because knowing when to engage is the difference between everyone on the team having a successful team fight and having a not so successful team fight. It's a really very important thing. It kind of goes back to one of my previous podcasts, which was knowing when to push. And when I did that, that was more of kind of a macro idea of when to push versus when to soak. You know, oh, when do we generally have the advantage? But today I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the individual fights themselves and knowing when we should fight a specific fight and when we should not. And it's very important to understand when to engage, even if you're not the initiator. Typically, the initiator is going to be your tank or some sort of a frontline person, say like a butcher or even a thrall, depending on what it is. That's usually your initiator. They're the ones who start the fights, and then the rest of the damage follows up, right? But even if you're not the initiator, it's really important for you to know when you should engage and when you shouldn't, because that allows you to predict what your allies are going to do. And the better individual understanding that you have of when fights should and should not start, the better your teamwork and communication is going to get. So it's very important. Easiest way that I remember this is I have a little checklist that I go through. It's pretty straightforward. You know, in fact, I am actually going to show my notes, because this is super important for you to just like see. So number one, check the minimap. Absolutely the most important thing. You need to check the minimap and make sure that your teammates are nearby, and you're counting just the overall number of people around here. Generally for this checklist, I'm referring to groups like 5v5 big team fights. but this can also apply to smaller engagements. If you're looking at the late game where you're getting ready for a 5v5 engagement, say it's Blackguard's Bay, and you're getting ready to turn in, and the other team the other team might be trying to stop you. You go to the turn in S5, and as you're kind of like bouncing back and forth at the turn in, poking each other, then you look at the minimap and you realize, oh wait, you know what? One of their main damage dealers is up in the top lane clearing a wave. We actually have a 5v4 advantage right now. That is a very basic way to say, okay, we can engage now. We have a numbers advantage. That's one of those things that you can do. But similarly, you can also do that in the early game as well. If you're, say, on Dragonshire and you're up in the top lane at the top shrine and somebody rotates up from mid and suddenly you have a 3v2 and you know that the other person who's mid either backed or went down to the bottom, and so you know that it's going to be a 3v2. If you look at the map and you only see the two people in the top lane but you don't see anyone else, it's probably not a good idea to engage, because if you don't know where those other people are and you're not sure where they could be, you could potentially find yourself in a 3v2 turned into a 4v3 or something weird like that, or a 3v3 turned on you very suddenly when you weren't expecting it, and suddenly an unfair fight becomes a fair fight with you out of position. So it's very important to check the numbers, just the overall numbers of people and where they are, and figure out where you want to go from that. To further fine-tune this, the second thing is check heroic cooldowns and mana/health. This is very important because you have to know how capable your team is of fighting. This is generally the role of the healer. The healer is generally the one who is keeping track of these things most importantly, and especially because the healer's heroic is usually the most important one. So you have an Uther with Divine Shield, you have a Malfurion with Tranquility, you have a Kerosene with Divine Palm. You have all these like super important ultimates, and it's really important to make sure those are up if you ever want to win a fight. Because if your healer doesn't have their healing ultimate, and the other team does have their healing ultimate, they're probably gonna out heal you and probably kill you. So, check heroic cooldowns, and you want to check the mana and health of your team, because there's also been times where, say for instance, I've been like, let's push, let's attack, let's go, and then I don't realize, because I'm busy playing an assassin, all I care about is the enemy team, and I can see them low, and I just want to attack them, but I don't realize that my healer is out of mana, or my tank is actually pretty low, or another one of the assassins on my team is really low. I don't really pay attention to those things as closely. So that's something that, as a whole individual player, you have to get better at recognizing and understanding. Like, do I want to fight? They're all really low. Do I actually want to fight? Let me look at my allies. Okay, I can fight. Or, okay, I need to back off because my allies aren't going to be able to follow up in the way that they would normally. So that's super important. The other thing to look at is just making sure game-changing heroics are, like I said, the healer's heroic is really important, but also things like having a Sylvanet's Silence Arrow, Thrall having Sundering, things like that. You want to generally make sure that all of your heroics are up before you try to engage, or at least you want to have them in a smart way. It's complicated when you get into when teams turn and things like that, but that's also where this comes in mind. You have to remember when your opponent's heroic cooldowns are up. So technically you can do this very exactly. It's more difficult to do in Heroes than something like League of Legends or Dota, I think, because in those games the heroics or the ultimates have very long cooldowns, and you can generally just time it really easily. You can say, oh, he used TP 4 minutes. So So it's 8 minutes now, 12 minutes, that's when teleport's going to be up again. You can do stuff like that. But in this game, the heroic cooldowns are typically very short, and if people have stuff like battle momentum and things like that that reduce their cooldowns, that can also be very difficult to keep up with. The most important thing is just knowing, did they use it recently? Like if they used it within the last 20 seconds, pretty much no game-changing heroic is going to be up. Certainly things that have charges, like I'm drawing a blank. I don't know, like Lunar's heroics, like those will be up. But things like Entomb, things like Octograb, Sundering, big things like that, they're not going to be up. It's all right. You can, if they use that and they don't get anything done with that, you know that's off cooldown. You can say, all right, we can engage. We're 5v5, but they don't have this game-changing ultimate. So that can be really, really good, especially if the entire team relies on that ultimate in order to get things done. And obviously the best example of this is anytime a healer's heroic is down. If you manage to bait out like a really early tranquility without having to like actually hard engage, and then you just back off and then just re-engage 20 seconds later, you won't have tranquility and you'll win that fight. You pretty much win that fight. So that's something to keep in mind. Next is check map objectives. Now this is something I actually didn't have in my notes originally. I only added this to my notes a couple minutes before starting. And the reason why I didn't think about it is because it's one of those things that doesn't click with you automatically. You want to always check the map objectives whenever you're thinking about when to fight. Because this to some degree goes back to my older episode of knowing when to push. You want to pay attention to the map objectives and say, oh, you know what, we can push right now. This is a great thing. Let's force a fight right now. And then other times you want to go, you know, we could force a fight, but I don't think we're going to get much done. It would be better for us to just go ahead and take the map objective. And so a pretty good example of this is the other day I was playing on Blackheart's Bay, and I was playing with some random people that I met, and I was playing Uther. And I noticed that we were all pretty healthy, and we had just taken a boss, and it was pushing on their keep, on their top keep. And so I was like, you know what? Let's just push for this. This is a great idea. Let's go ahead and push this keep and get a free keep off of this. And all my allies were like, I don't know. We kind of have a lot of coins to lose. And I was like, what? We let me see. And I tabbed and I checked the coins, and I was like, you know, actually we have enough for a turn in. There's no real reason for us to push this keep. We can just go get a free turn in. It's not worth risking all these coins. On something like, say, perhaps Cursed Hollow, that would be a great decision. But on Blackheart's Bay, because we had all these coins, we had an opportunity to get damage in without having to actually fight. It was kind of a no-brainer to just say, you know what, let's not try to force a 5v5 fight. Even though we might get a keep off of this, it's better for us to just go ahead and take the safe route. So that's something that you can do. It's something that you can potentially do on Sky Temple as well. Obviously, this one's a little bit more difficult to fine-tune because it's very situational, and there are certain things like you can kill one person on their team and be like, okay, we got a free fort sometimes, and then other times you may kill a fairly insubstantial person on their team, like Murky may die or something like that, and it's like you can push the keep down 5v4, but it just won't be that impactful because you didn't actually take much of a blow to their team. So it's one of those things that can be difficult to fine-tune, but with enough practice you can get there. And then finally, the last part of the checklist is check your individual positioning. This is important because if your team fights in a bad position, it will be a bad team fight. It's pretty straightforward, but a lot of people don't seem to realize this. If you take a fight in a bad position, you will have a bad team fight. So the most important thing is, going back to another older episode, is knowing your role. You have to know what you're supposed to do in a team fight and where it is you need to position yourself. If you are somebody like a Kael'thas or a Jaina or a Vala, you need to position yourself in the back behind the tank. That is absolutely where you need to be, because you're squishy and you can die really easily. And so it's important for you to stay behind somebody who will soak all the damage for you, and where you can also be effective in dealing out the damage. If you're a healer, you want to generally be in the middle of the team. You want to be able to reach everybody with your heals, things like that. You don't want to be way out in front or trailing way behind, because then you won't be able to heal the. If you're way behind, you won't be able to heal the tank. If you're way in front, you can get picked off, or you won't be able to heal people that are getting wrecked on the back line. So it's important to make sure you're in the right positioning. If you're in the right positioning, your team will do much better. And likewise, you can also look at what the enemy team is doing. If the enemy team ever makes a mistake, like one of their squishies pokes way out in the front, you can punish that. That is punishable. Something like an Entomb. I'm sorry, Entomb is like my go-to heroic today. I don't know why. If you have something like an Entomb or a Murden Stun or something like that, you can quickly pick off someone who pushes a little bit too far forward. So it's very important to make sure that you're paying attention to where everyone is, both on your team and the other team, and kind of discover opportunities to pick people off while maintaining your own position. It's super important. And if you know your own position, like I said earlier, it will help you have better team communication and teamwork, because you'll be in the right position to begin with, and you won't have tanks that walk into the middle of a fight and be like, where the fuck is my damage? Where is it? Because you'll already be in position. And if they're paying attention to what you're doing, they know that they shouldn't be walking in before you get there. I think another good example of it is heroes that need to flank. So if I think of something like Zeratul is a hero that typically flanks. That's kind of what he does. He comes in from the side. He generally has a Void Prison on the back line and kills the front line, or vice versa, something like that. So you want to make sure that if you're heading to a fight, say you're running to a temple on Sky Temple, and you just go ahead and fight before Zeratul is able to get in position, he's still trailing behind, he hasn't had time to flank around, that can be problematic. You have to make sure that you're not doing that sort of thing. So positioning is pretty much everything when it comes to really getting all the micro intricacies of engaging in a team fight. So overall, if you go through this checklist every time you think about fighting, every time you go, all right, so I want to fight right now. Okay, let me minimap our heroics mana. Can we do something better? And is our positioning good? If you go through these things, you'll generally start finding yourself in much better positions. You take engagements. If one of them, or one or more of them aren't met, you should probably rethink what you're doing. So if you're about to engage and you say, okay, it's 5v5, right? We're all pretty full, and we don't really have to take an objective. All right, let's go. And then you realize that you're just half of your team is just out of position and not ready to fight. You may not realize that. So you have to be paying attention. This goes for like small engagements too. You can be like, okay, so we're on top of this tribute. We know one person is soaking in the top lane, and so is our other guy. So this is a 4v4 fight, and you start to attack. And you're like, okay, this is good, we can take a 4v4 fight, we're level 7, they're level 6, and then Falstad flies out of top lane because you weren't paying attention and realizing that was Falstad. Then suddenly it's a 5v4 fight, and even though you may be a talent up, you're still in pretty bad situations. So that's very important. Just keep in mind, like you can't just overlook things. You have to take in all of the information and combine it into whether or not you should engage. There's some people who just continually engage over and over and over and are always looking for a fight, and they get a lot of mixed results. what happens when you play aggressive all the time is sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And it's hard to know why. So what I tend to say is always play safe. Even when I was playing StarCraft 2, this was kind of my motto was play safe. Because the more you play safe, the more you play in a stable fashion, the more consistent results you'll get, and the easier it is to determine what you did right and wrong and how to fix mistakes. So when you don't have these conditions on the checklist met, it's best to just back off and say, you know what, let's just not engage. Like, we might be able to win a 4v5 fight on boss because they might take a lot of damage from boss, but it might just be better for us to just, let them take boss. Like, we poked them a little bit, but let's just let them take boss. We'll just defend boss and go from there. So it hurts to do that because you want to be like, no, they can't have boss. They can't have boss. We have to fight this. We have to fight this. But you have to take some moments where you just have to say, you know what? Let's just play safe. Let's not try to go all in a bad engagement on purpose, even though we know it's incorrect. That's something that's important to do. And you want to make sure that when you are fighting, you want to make sure that it matters, because you don't want to just be like, oh, I'm just going to attack. Oh, they're doing boss right now. Okay, 5v5, let's go. They're on top of the boss. We can fight this. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure, okay, so if we go and fight the boss, are we actually going to be able to get to the boss on time to take it? Or are we going to be able to do significant damage to the team after they take the boss in order to get ahead in experience or something like that? The problem that you run into when you have something like that is you go, all right, let's go for the boss, and then you get there and either your positioning is bad and you get team wiped, or you get there late and the enemy has just finished doing boss. You might be able to force a team fight, but the longer they draw out that team fight, the more damage they're doing with boss, and the further behind you fall. Basically, the only solution there is if you get like 3 or 4 kills to even out the damage that the boss is doing. So it becomes really inconsistent because you can get there and sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. So you have to make sure that you think about what is the effect that you're getting out of this fight. If you try to force a team fight that is in not optimal conditions, if you try to just like crash into a temple on Sky Temple and just say, okay, we're taking this team fight, and you don't actually get anything out of it, if it just comes back, okay, both teams got horribly wounded and lost 2 people, and neither people can really take the temple, but they kind of did because their tank was up and your tank died. Like, that doesn't help you, obviously. So you have to think about what you're actually getting out of it. If you're not getting anything out of these team fights, then it might be best for you to just take a step back and say, you know what? That's fine. We don't have to fight them at the temple. We'll just trade forts, or we'll just do boss and work from there. And it's also possible to just give up things like, for instance, Blackheart's Bay is, I think, a great one. Because Blackheart's Bay, it's really easy for you to be like, okay, we have enough coins for a turn and we have to fight. But it's fine for you to just say, all right, what, we don't have really good positioning here, and they have all 5 here. Back off. We'll just back off, we'll go do a night camp, and we'll come back here in 3 minutes. 3 minutes? That seems a lot. We'll come back here in like a minute and a half, right? So it's not important. You want to look for opportunities, but you don't want to force them. You don't want to throw yourself into a fight unnecessarily just because you want to fight. That's basically knowing when to engage. Obviously, there's a lot of nuance to it, and like I said, when you're going through this checklist, there's a lot of different things to account for. There's different ways to do it. So I'm going to do a little example real quick, just so we can look at this. So this is Navi versus Virtus Pro and the Into the Storm U qualifier. So I just want to talk about this particular engagement a little bit and talk about what makes sense and why. So first of all, just note that we're not anywhere near any kind of talent spikes or anything like that. It's level 8 to 8. So this is all the stuff that's on my checklist, right? So first things first, check the minimap. How many of your teammates are fighting? Okay, so we look here. We have 3 of the Virtus Pro members and 2 Navi members. So naturally you say, okay, there's 3 people here versus 2, 3v2, we're good. You look down at the minimap and you go, okay, Thrall and Leoric are fighting. All right, and it looks like Falstad and oh, it's just Falstad, yeah. Looks like Falstad kind of has Kael'thas and Sylvanas zoned out. And what's more is if we look at number 4, check the positioning, we go, oh, you know what? This Kerosene is out of position. We can stun him and unload a bunch of stuff on him and hurt him really badly. Fortunately, SubJ kind of messes up and puts his Hydralisk in the wrong person, but that's fine. So they push in here and they start attacking the fort, and then they go, oh, wait. We don't have vision on middle anymore. This is really bad, because suddenly, if these 2 people come up, suddenly it's a 4v3. So we're seeing them back up, and this is one of those things where Navi is taking a really good positioning in an arc like this. Notice they have the healer and the tank together, and they have their 2 damage dealers coming in from the side to flank. So they catch Zagara out of position. It is possible that Falstad could be over here or like down in this region, but that doesn't matter because you have two big damage dealers here and they can kill him, no problem. So they do that. They manage to go on SubJ, but unfortunately he kind of gets away. Well, Eternal manages to get onto him. We have the cut in from Falstad. Now if you look at this, you'll see that both of the people in the bottom lane, they both cleared the lane, so they're kind of working their way up top. But they're keeping tabs on each other. This is important still to number 1. Check the minimap. So if you are 1v1ing somebody in an off lane, you want to make sure that you are paying attention to where they're going, because it's very common for you to be like, okay, you guys do objective. I think we're just gonna soak down here, and you have a 4-1 split. And you're sitting there in the 4-1 split, and you are fighting the other person, and like the wave clears, and then like you go back to your gate and wait for the next wave, and then realize that the other person rotated and you didn't, and you're a horrible person. So you want to make sure you're keeping tabs on the person that you're 1v1ing down in that bottom lane. So there are no heroics up in this, but you can see that we're paying attention to, okay, little things like Falstad's dash is down. We know that SubJ is really low. I think Hydralisk went off a little while ago. Yeah, Hydralisk is still going. There's no problems with the Hydralisk. So stuff like that. If we move forward, let's just move forward. Let me find a random engagement. Okay, there's likely to be an engagement because we have these web weavers up. So you see that they're pushing bottom lane. They know Tassadar is up here. They know there are 4 people in this lane. All right, push the keep because we know it's going to be a 5v0 currently. Look at the minimap. We see, okay, Tassadar left. So this is going to be a 5v5 up here at this keep. Can we fight this? All right, we have the Phoenix coming out. So far, nothing else has been used. The main thing that we're looking for is we're really worried about the Devouring Maw and the Sundering. Those are going to be 2 big key spells. So there's the Mighty Gust to delay time. We know that there's plenty of time now. Everyone's still in position. We see this art coming out, but these 2 are kind of out of position. If you can get on top of these 2 for any reason with... we don't have an Entomb here. So it would probably, yeah, just be like a ground pound squad between Leoric and Turiel. we were to have some kind of fight. See, there we go. There's the positioning. So we see that Zagara poked a little bit too far forward. So Zarmini instantly jumps forward, Holy Grounds, pushes her to the front. Everybody collapses on her. There goes the Maw, misses. Even if it did hit, if it hit several members, we still have Sanctification to counter that. There goes the Sundering. We know there's no Sundering left now. Sanctification to deny that. Okay, we're good. And then False Eye gets out of position. Same thing. Holy Ground. Knock him forward. And you notice that all the damage dealers are staying pretty far in the back. Like they're all staying pretty far back and letting the damage dealers, or sorry, the tanks plus the healer tank all the damage. So I think the important part of that is if we go back, this is after the Mighty Gust has been used. They made sure to bait out the Mighty Gust first. If they did this kind of maneuver with the Mighty Gust up, they would all collapse on Zagara and then just get Mighty Gusted away and nothing would happen. So this was very good bait out, and knowing that Mighty Gust was down, this is a great example of knowing when heroic cooldowns are on and off, and knowing when you can really exploit them. So I think that's pretty much everything I want to talk about. That's, in a nutshell, knowing when to engage and when to not engage. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, ideas, etc., let me know about down below. Like I said, you can also, what I said at the beginning, we are recruiting writers. So if you want to write for us, just message me on TL or email tlheroeswriters@gmail.com and we will get back to you. All right, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time. Later.